Good afternoon, Julie. How are you?
I'm well, Charles. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely appreciate you coming on and taking some time to interview here on the Q.A.C. team podcast. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. It's my
Yeah,
pleasure.
thank you. So let's go ahead and get started and tell the
Sure.
audience more about who you are and what you do.
I'm Julie Yoder, and my company is English with Purpose, and we provide advanced English language communication training and coaching to international teams and organizations. And that takes a
International.
couple of different forms. That's probably
Yeah, I
an
was going to say
explanation, right?
international, right? Yeah, that covers a lot. You say international, right?
Yeah, yeah. So form number one was really the backbone of the business, which is one-to-one English language coaching. We still do that, but in the past few years, after we went through a rebranding in 2018, and we've been moving more into being a B2B, business to business consulting company. And in the
Nice.
past few years in particular, we've focused on trainings and workshops that help mostly American-based companies and teams that have multicultural and multilingual team members communicate better, sometimes
Gotcha.
internally and sometimes externally. It's whatever they need. We come in and we do an extensive analysis of what the challenges are. Um, and there's a third part that I absolutely have to talk about because it's my passion project that's connected to this whole the past 15 years of work. In 2025, we're launching presentation skills and public speaking retreats at our space in Maryland, which is my little homestead in Farmette. And this has been a dream project that's been 8 years in the making. So it's a one-day
Nice.
intensive retreat focused on international professionals based in the US who are working in English as their target language, who want to become more effective public speakers in English.
Nice. That is very awesome. So tell our audience a little bit about why you decided to be a business owner.
I didn't decide so much, I was pushed.
You were pushed to it.
Yeah. Um, I was So my field, English language teaching, I've been doing this for, I don't know, 27 years now. There are lots of amazing opportunities. It can take you all around the world. It can take you into just amazing spaces. What it rarely does for anyone is offer any kind of financial stability. So I had taught overseas. I had taught business English after my graduate degree for a company in Bavaria. That was fascinating. It was a wonderful, like, early career project. This company had a proprietary process for printing on foil packaging.
Oh,
So,
wow.
for example, the tops of the when you take off the top of a yogurt cup, do you ever look at that top of the yogurt cup?
When you flip it open, you look at
Hmm.
the where the
Or
oh
like
yeah.
even the outside. Have you ever noticed it?
Oh yeah.
Okay, because a lot goes into that. And my job was to work with the various teams at this company, mostly the sales team, to help them have the language to explain to international clients what they could or could not do for printing. But it was a wonderful early career experience. I got to tour the printing floor. I had to learn all this specialized vocabulary in
Oh wow.
English before I could teach it to the team members. So out of the gate, I had this wonderful work opportunity, but it was temporary. And I didn't have, a permanent work permit for Europe. So I came back to the States and I spent a couple of years looking for stable work and ended up in the public school system, which wasn't what I trained for, but actually I grew to love it. Um, so I taught 6 years ESL, sixth grade. Some people think middle school teachers are crazy, but I love that age.
Middle school
I
is tough.
yeah, it's tough, but the sixth graders, I just love it. They're still babies. You get to see them through this transformation. By the time they're 14, I want nothing to do with them. But the 11 and 12-year-olds was my sweet spot. And we had 57 different languages represented in our middle school alone in Northern Virginia.
Wow.
So I did that for about 6 years, and then I hit burnout so hard, both physical and mental. I had undiagnosed thyroid disease at the time. So I
Oof.
didn't know it, but we were also working in an active construction zone for 6 years. The school system had spent all this money to have the schools renovated, and every construction company affiliated with it had filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy, and they were left with an unfinished, toxic building and no money to finish it. And I wasn't the only one who'd started getting sick, but I found out later one of a handful of people who consistently spoke up about it, but they had been kind of keeping us separate from each other. Um, and it was just really unfortunate. I had this dynamic team of people, one of those rare situations where you're completely aligned with your teammates and your mission, how you teach, how you support the kids. We genuinely loved each other. And so my leaving for my own health caused a major disruption. And they were really angry at me at first. And that was
Yeah.
like because people didn't understand. I had like a mystery illness. I was having debilitating migraines. I couldn't get up and down the stairs while I was at work, but then I would go home and after a couple of hours I would feel okay. Um, and I wasn't the only one experiencing these symptoms, but it wasn't anything you could get a doctor to diagnose and then go back into work and say, look, I need to go on disability leave. So eventually I was so, my final year, I just had a constant round of virus and infection and it wouldn't stop. And I took more sick leave than I ever had in my life. And there's one day in a co-teaching classroom where I'd been trying to tell my co-teacher I needed to go home and she kept ignoring me. And then apparently while she was teaching, she turned around and looked at me. And at one point in 15 minutes, the side of my head had like swelled up in real time and she could see the difference and she was like, oh my God, I think you need to go home. I said, yes, this is what I've been trying to tell you. um,
For how many
so
years, right? Yeah.
yeah, after that
Wow.
I took a leave of absence. um, trying to keep my job. I'm very risk averse with the way I was raised. Do not have entrepreneurs in my family, do not have business owners in my family, very much an upbringing of, you get an education, you get a stable job, you stay in that job. That's rare for so pretty much everybody these days,
For
but
everybody.
yeah, but that type of upbringing.
Yeah.
So it was a really big deal when I abruptly said I can't go back to work. Um, but I was really sick and I had always had this idea of working for myself. I had worked for several other employers, some good, some not so good. And always in the back of my mind in those situations, I was kind of taking mental notes about for the not good ones, what would I do differently? One of them had been an adult language school in DC where I worked temporarily. It was terrible. I would always think like, I love these students, the work is engaging, but if I were running this place,
I have all these better ideas
yeah,
on
I
how
can
things
see
could
how to
go.
turn it around and make it something like really great instead of a place where
Yeah.
there's a revolving door of employees who work for 3 months and like
It's like
never
a
come back.
that's like a common thing, isn't it? It's the
Hmm.
revolving door now. It's
Hmm.
insane. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
that's
I'm
a
going to
whole other topic connected to our career
yeah, right.
coaching and yeah, I can definitely bring it back to that because that is a hot topic indeed.
Yeah.
Um,
So I'm going to assume that this is going to lead us to the next question, right?
mhm.
So why did you choose your industry? So that's probably where we're headed, right? So this is like
Yeah,
perfect
yeah.
timing to ask this
So,
question,
I
right?
found myself with like I didn't know I couldn't go back to that career. I had to take a stock of what I had. And I said, well, what do I have and what's here? I have a master's degree in this field. I have 10 years of experience. I have overseas experience. Where do I live? I live in Washington, D.C. Who might need English support? What do we have here? Foreign diplomats, people at the World Bank, people at the IMF. And so I started the first business by I printed out introductory letters and actually walked up and down Embassy Row and knocked on doors.
Oh, that's
And
impressive.
yeah, and it led to, like that first client. It was an interesting reception. Most people were polite, some were intrigued, and were insulted. Why are you here? Our English is fine.
Yeah. You're insulting me. Leave me
Yeah.
alone.
But I had looked around thinking, surely there are all these international organizations and NGOs centered in DC. Surely there's somebody doing this type of work, but I couldn't find an online presence. So it was a little easy in the beginning, a little too easy. I didn't have to learn, I hadn't gone to business school. I didn't have to learn marketing because I just thought, well, I'll just make a findable website. And that's what I did. And I hired a friend to do a cheap startup website and we started getting hits almost immediately because
Wow.
this niche population is pretty, strong and everybody needs this service. But I think other people have been working off of word of mouth or just maybe they would get one or two organizations and they would just focus on those organizations. So it built up slowly over time, but I also needed to heal. So it's not like I built the business all at once. I was doing odd jobs to just have money coming in. I walked dogs for an agency. I
Right.
bartended in an arts organization, and then one client would come in and we would focus on that client, and then that would lead to a referral, or we would get a second client. And for 2 years, it was a very slow and steady process. And then there was a tipping point after the first 2 years where I was able to hire my first full-time contractor where demand suddenly, it's like we hit
Right.
that tipping point.
And that was the next question that, was going to ask. So what some of the challenges that you faced, obviously getting this going, it was pretty easy starting out with this website and you got some hits, but let's talk about more of some of the challenges that you were faced with as you were continuing to grow with this and get this going.
Yeah, I think it was a false sense of success too early.
Mm,
I know from working in the English language teaching world that this industry is highly affected by global events. Um, and one of the things I learned pretty quickly, so you start, if you work with any one group or industry or the embassies in particular, I had wonderful relationships and people would refer you to colleagues, but then pretty soon you'd have maybe 8 people in one embassy. And that's like a big chunk of your monthly revenue, right? And then something happens in their country, or something happens between their country's relationship in the US and the whole thing goes away overnight. So it's kind of like the
oh,
stock market.
yeah.
So I had to learn, sometimes people would say, "Oh, my friend wants to talk to you, my colleague wants to talk to you." And I would have to really think about diversification. We can't just go off of referrals and put all of our eggs in one basket
Right.
because I saw some pretty wild things over the years, depending upon what was happening on the global stage and that country's role and the US's relationship with it. It was never affected like the relationship with our clients specifically, but their ability to pay for the services.
Yeah, to be able to do what you wanted to do
Mhm.
and help people learn the English
Mhm.
language. Yeah, that's amazing. Wow. And all this was in the span of how many years?
I would say, let's see, I incorporated in late 2009. It was like 2 years trying to get things off the ground. It was sometime in late 2010, 2011 that things started really picking up. We started getting more, sometimes group contact tracks. We did some training through think tanks that had programs with visiting foreign diplomats. And so we were able to diversify a little bit. But the next biggest challenge was, well, there were many, but the pandemic was the significant one because lots of people in the English language teaching world have been working low-paying jobs, working for online tutoring platforms. And when the pandemic hit or the physical language schools shut down, everybody was forced online. And so that little niche that I had built up, that nice little niche in DC, very advanced, sophisticated, I was thrown back onto the internet with thousands and thousands and thousands of newly minted independent practitioners.
Yes.
And many of them were younger than me and had better online marketing skills. Um, so I lost my local niche and then had to like crawl my way. We had a organic position on the first page of Google for 10 years. And that
Huh.
went away the summer of 2020 because the Berlitzes of the world and all of the big branded global language schools, they went dark for a couple of months. But then when they came back in June, they totally rebranded as like, take our award-winning online classes, which they had not been doing before. I had been doing that quietly before.
Yeah.
But they were spent, I hired an SEO specialist and she said, the money they are spending on Google ads, you as a solopreneur, you can't touch it. She's like, don't go that
That's it.
route.
Yep.
Um,
Yep.
so we actually got through with the PPP money helped. I did apply for the Paycheck Protection loans. And it did for us, I say us because my partner had a dog walking business and was in a similar situation, but it did what it was supposed to do. It offered just enough stability and money for me to strategize my way out of that. And also just to
Yeah.
wait it out because these were all startups, right? And you knew that a
Yeah.
lot of them weren't going to make it. Um,
Yeah. As soon as we get back to normal things
yeah,
go away. Yeah, it
yeah.
happens. Yep. Yep.
And and sure enough, some of the people who were most visible online within a year they were gone.
Yeah.
Um, because it's not easy.
Not like January 1st, everybody rushes to the gym. I want to work
Yeah.
out.
Mhm.
2 months later, they're gone.
Yeah. And also I've
Yeah.
been running the business for many years at that point. I knew that you can't really build like a one-to-one model is not sustainable.
Yeah.
Any
Must
business
have
where
been.
you're selling your time by the hour, you're just never gonna, it limits your income. It requires a great deal of energy. And that was kind of online explosion during the pandemic was all these teachers who'd worked in crappy conditions who were excited to finally have control, but didn't have the experience to understand that, like, you're going to be working so much.
Right.
You're
And
going to
you're
be
going
on
to
the
be
computer like 12 hours a day.
right, and you're going to be burnt out as well.
Yeah, and your eyes are going to be spinning by the end of the day, and you're going to look at your bank account and say, how is this not adding up? So,
Yeah, absolutely. So you were excited about one of the services that you're been working on. Talk a little bit about that, what you were leading up to when we first started talking. Let's
yeah,
talk
thank
about that.
you. There I had a Spanish client who informed me more than 10 years ago that there is this English language learning empire in Spain, and their primary service is an immersion retreat. And Spaniards pay a great deal of money. Nobody even knows how much money. I've tried. You have to like set up a consultation to talk to somebody on the sales team because usually their employers are paying for it. But it's been wildly successful. It's been replicated in several other countries. There have been spin-off companies. And I thought, wow, we have that population here. People don't understand that we have that population here. You know, they
Mhm.
think, oh, you're working in the United States. What's the problem? But all the pain points are similar. And usually people are speaking their native language at home, especially if they have children. They're trying to keep the native language alive, you know,
Right.
for that generation. So for example, if they're working at, you know, the Pan American Health Organization, they're not speaking English at work. They're speaking their native language at work, and then they're speaking their native language at home. And then, you know, 3 years goes by, 5 years goes by, suddenly they're not any better. And that's usually
Mm,
the point at which they would find us. Um,
gotcha.
so I could see that this need was here. And I thought, wow, that could be really exciting, you know, to do something different. And I
Mhm.
went to Spain to volunteer. The business model runs off of volunteers. So native English speakers, mostly Brits, get this free 1 week vacation in Spain at a really nice hotel. And then their only obligation is to participate in the programming and have conversations with the paying participants. So
Right.
I traveled there and with a friend to
Wow.
see like how the business was set up. And there was nothing complicated in the programming. I had designed much more sophisticated programming in my career. I thought, this is just logistics. Like, this is just logistics and finding the right target audience.
Marketing, logistics and
Yeah.
marketing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I came
Amazing.
back and started, you know, working on that, researching retreat areas, usually in the mountains in Virginia or Maryland. And it just took time. It took time and it took a couple of different iterations. Ultimately, the liability insurance was like, no overnights. It's okay. Let's make this an
We could do
intensive.
without that.
Yeah, unlike
Right.
Europe, you know, I couldn't just replicate it in the way that they were doing it because there were other constraints. But different things happened over time. And then through a small miracle, I got this house in rural Frederick County in 2022. And I told the realtor about this dream and this idea. So initially, she'd started looking for things that would fit this retreat idea. But then when the pandemic came, I said, you know what, just find me a place to live. I have to get out of the city. Um, and somehow the house just hit all these parameters. And it's like the property told me how to redesign the project to make it successful.
Right.
For example, I somehow got this huge driveway that can hold up to 14 cars.
Wow.
And somehow my driveway is 49 minutes equidistant from each of the local airports.
Wow. So you can say convenient located 45 minutes from the airport.
Right. So pick, you
Yeah.
know, wherever you're coming from, just shop around.
Yeah.
So when those
It's
things fell
amazing.
into place, I redesigned it and I thought, well, what's the primary pain point of all of our clients? And it's presentation skills and public speaking skills in English. So um, I started, I got the permit to have, you know, business activities at the house. I connected with the local companies here in Frederick County. I connected with the local business support resources, which have been amazing. We have this Maryland Women's Business Center and also the SBDC where you can get a free business counselor. Um, and everything just kind of clicked into place. So we finally put the finishing, we put the polishing touches on all of it last year. And now we're going to be hosting in the warm months, sometimes once a month, sometimes twice. There's several dates throughout the year where people can sign up to come, usually on a Saturday, but I staggered some of it. And they spend an intensive, hardworking day working on their presentation and public speaking skills. But the difference is they're in a nature-based environment. And
Right.
so it's this very holistic approach where we're bringing in yoga teachers and there's a catered, homemade organic lunch. I grow a lot of food here on the property, so we'll be using what we have. I have chickens, so we
Wow.
use the eggs from there.
Very
We
cool.
use as much as possible that comes directly from the property, and then we can buy the other things locally. So the idea is that you're in the most relaxed possible way, you're working on this skill that's a pain point for you.
Right. Yeah, you're free from distractions, you're free from the
Mhm.
fear. You're just there to open up, be yourself and learn how to speak.
Exactly. And so we have, breaks throughout the day because it's a beautiful setting. They can take a walk on the country road. They can, and the other thing that's, you're not going to believe this, but the other thing that came with the house is a movie room in the basement, which there was already a projector built into the wall with a giant screen in the one finished room downstairs.
That is awesome.
So,
Kudos to you. It's like it was just meant to be. The universe said, here it is. Boom.
yeah, yeah. It's a good exercise in patience too, because there were definitely, after 6, 7 years of working on, there were definitely times when I almost gave up. I just
Yeah.
thought, this isn't going to work, or maybe this isn't meant to be, or we should just work on other revenue streams. But I'm very, very happy that I stuck with it.
That's awesome. Perseverance, man. Just keep going.
Yeah,
I hear it every day.
I
People
know
tell me all the time, Chuck, keep going. Chuck, keep going.
it's the superpower. And then one of my favorite clients always says, my superpower is I never give up.
Yeah,
And I thought
that's good.
about him, in the times when I really wanted to give up, when there're just too many bureaucratic obstacles. But really, this was a
Yeah.
really interesting. I've never had so many things align effortlessly
Mm.
in that way just for me. And everything had just been a struggle in my entrepreneurial journey. And so, and then last summer, I entered a pitch competition. One of our signature events with the Frederick Chamber of Commerce is She Week, and it's a 1 week that focuses on women in business, and it's amazing. And they
Mhm.
have a pitch competition for prize money every year.
Wow.
And I
That's
didn't
very
want to give
cool.
up on this project. So many things have been put into place, but I didn't have the time to market it. So we'd been putting them up on the website and then like quietly canceling, when we didn't get enough registrations. And I thought, I really don't want to give up on this. So I went through the process last summer and I won for the growth
Oh,
stage.
yes.
So the
Congratulations.
promotional video that you now see on our website is the result of that we use the prize money because I thought that was sort of the disconnect. I have this concept. I know it's going to be fantastic. When I talk to people, they get very excited, but we don't have the visuals yet to show them what exactly this experience is, especially in today's world where people would rather
Mhm.
watch videos than read.
I know, right? It's like if it's in video, we're good. I'm not going to read your website. Let me see what you're about. Right. So what's your expectations for your business in the next year or two? What are you hoping to accomplish?
We're hoping to have several successful retreats. We're hoping to eventually become a go-to training destination, not just for our region, but for, all around the country, because as far as I know, it's unique. There are lots of public speaking skills programs, but none of them, because I did a ton of market research for the pitch competition, none of them are focused exclusively on advanced English language learners. So
Gotcha.
it's kind of a safe space for that. Um, we're leaning into trainings around AI. AI has been a game changer for our clients. So it's been very interesting to see through the personal coaching how people are using it, who's using it with the blessing of their employer, who's using it in secret because they don't want, for some reason, various reasons they don't want their employer to know. We're seeing a lot of disconnects around um, teams. It's kind of interesting. Like a lot of people are using it to seriously up-level their skills, but their colleagues don't know that.
Yeah.
Or the company doesn't have a defined policy. And we have a Copilot account. You should be using Copilot instead of running sensitive information through Chat GPT. So we've developed a workshop called Ethical Uses of AI for communication, for enhanced
Very
communication.
nice.
And that's what we're really trying to shop around for 2025. All of this is still evolving right now, of course.
Yeah.
But we do have a unique glimpse into the positives and the disconnects because we work with people from a variety of fields.
Yeah. That's very interesting because I do a Friday at 4 podcast series with my co-host Steve. And that's been a hot topic for us over the past few. We've talked about AI and how people are using it and how we're using it. And yeah, it's in the forefront of a lot of people's minds right now.
Mhm.
Absolutely. So how do people reach out to you? How do they contact you?
The best contact is Julie at englishwithpurpose.com. Or there's also a contact form on our website, which is englishwithpurpose.com. I'm also on LinkedIn, but if you just, I'm on top of my email inbox. So if you write to me, I'll respond.
Very cool. Any final thoughts before we wrap up?
Um, just like you said, persistence. I think
Yeah.
that's what I want people to understand more than anything. So,
Yeah. Kudos to you for not giving up. Because Steve and I talk about that a lot too, in
mhm.
our Friday at 4 series. And you're more than welcome to come on if you ever have time on a Friday at 4 o'clock and,
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
talk about, join our conversation by all means, you can still use the link that you have. It'll connect you
Okay.
to us, absolutely. And
Yeah.
share your thoughts with us, and we talk about that a lot, is don't give up. Keep
Yeah.
going, man. We're
And stay
there.
on that thread because people need to hear it. I know you might sound like you're repeating yourself, but it's the most of the advice is in my entrepreneurial experience is not realistic. People give up when things become hard, or
Mhm.
just the visuals of social media present everything as being this easy road, but
Yeah.
we're always seeing the best of everything, or we're seeing people, we're not seeing all the years that went into behind that moment.
Yeah, that's what we talk about a lot. Yeah, we talk about that a lot. You see people who are successful, but you don't see what they went through. Kind of like the ballerina, right?
Right.
You see the ballerina on her toe, but
Mhm.
inside that shoe is a foot that's really worn and destroyed because of all those hours and hours and years of work you put in to get to that stage. Yeah, it's tough.
It doesn't mean you can't disappear and lick your wounds when you need to, but you do have to get back on the horse, or nothing's really
Yeah.
going to
Yep. Yeah, Steve and I talked about that one time. I think I've had like 6 epiphanies in one day about
happen.
shifted my business model, but I think I finally got it. I know what I want now. I know what I'm going after, and I'm not going to stop until I get it.
Excellent.
So yeah. So
I'll make
Jolie, this
that
has been a
pact with
great
you.
right. This has been a great interview. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story. Can't wait to hear more. You're welcome to come on Friday at 4
Oh,
whenever we
wonderful.
have.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you.
And
I will definitely check that out. So, because I
yeah,
need
please.
inspiration to keep going too.
Yeah, that's definitely we'll definitely keep in touch, after the
Okay,
podcast. I definitely want to make sure, because I like what you do and there's so many good things that you're doing. You're helping more people. And I'm in the same position. I love helping people. That's what I'm about. I want to make businesses better, I want to help make employees better. It's just combining the word help, assistance is great.
fantastic. Yeah, I look forward then to continued conversations.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I hope you have a great rest of your day and we'll talk soon.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Take care. Thanks for coming on.
You've been listening to the Q.A.C. Team podcast with your host, Charles Luttrell. Connect with us on the web at QACteam.com, TikTok at Q.A.C. Team, Facebook and Instagram at QAC.team. Thanks for your support.